Okay, so welcome everybody. Another Tuesday, can you believe it? Hopefully everybody's doing well and the weather is fine wherever part of the world you're in out there. I'm here in the Midlands in Ireland and weather's a bit crazy today. It was actually lovely. I went out for a nice long walk earlier today and it was absolutely beautiful. And now it is actually raining and very cold and windy at the moment. So, but look, we're going to get things kicked off here. If somebody could just do me a big favor, anybody at all, I don't mind just unmute for just a second and just let me know you can see the screen okay and the sound is coming through okay. I would
Yes,
greatly
Patrick, we
appreciate it.
can, at least at my part of the idea.
Yeah,
Yes, here as well.
perfect. Thanks, guys. Much appreciate it. Much appreciate it. So, look, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get things kicked off there now. And I am recording, just so everybody knows. And for data protection, as you know, I always like to say that. So today, what we're going to do is, well, we're going to do a couple things today, actually. First, we're going to get into goal setting. I'm going to teach you a very simple format that I like to use when setting goals with clients and for myself. So, and it's very simple. It's not going to take long. And then we're going to get into some deeper training on well, you'll find out more about neuro-associative conditioning. But we're going to start out with what I refer to as, well, actually, that's not the right way to put it. What is referred to, because it's a common practice in the industry, something called SMART goals. SMART goals primarily stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timely. It's a format for goal setting. And again, it's one that I've used for myself for well, many years, but it's one that I always tend to use with clients. I always like, well, as you know, I like systems, I like structure. So the SMART goals are a very easy way when working with a client to make sure that, you know, you stick to the format. So when I talk about being specific, well, we like to be specific in our goals in the following key areas, which you know. The relationships. I like to make sure that we set specific goals all about around the relationships. And again, it doesn't have to be a bunch of different goals in all the different relationships. I like to try to focus on one key relationship either every month or every quarter. But again, about the relationships, level of health and fitness, the finances, and the growth. So, my advice to you is when you're working with a client, you should always be setting specific goals in each one of those key areas. Again, you can do multiple goals if that's what they want to do or if that's what you want to do for yourself. But you should always have one goal in each of the key areas. Now, initially, when you first start working with clients, you're not going to jump right into this because when you first start working with clients, what you're going to do is, well, you're going to get them, well, in the habit of controlling and directing their focus to those key areas. That's the first objective. But as you build up rapport, as you build up, you know, a relationship and start to connect with that individual, that's when you're going to get into the goal setting. And again, always make sure that you try to set one goal, at least one goal, in each of the key areas. And you'll get more, I'll explain a little bit more as we progress here. But M is, well, you have to ensure that it's measurable. Now, the good thing about our system, well, it's all based on measurements. You know, we're always using our point system. And by using the point system and inputting it into the dashboard, it's very measurable right there. You can see as time goes by, you can see how well, how consistent the individual is with that particular area, but with that particular goal that they're working in. That's part of the thing about making sure that we're not just focused on the key areas, but those subcategories as well in each of the key areas as well. So that's what we want to make sure that we're always using when it comes to the terms of measurements. Now, also too, it's important that when you are measuring the goals, that if you recall, linking up the rewards and punishments, that you're linking pain and pleasure, pleasure and pain, whenever you're going ahead and you're using that dashboard and you're inserting the point system, which again is just a form of measurement. So, and then A, being for achievable, you want to make sure that primarily that the individual is comfortable, that they believe that they can achieve the goal, that it's not some pie in the sky thing, that they basically don't believe they have the ability to achieve, that they're just saying it. You want them to be in the right mindset for yourself as well when you're setting your own goals, that you really believe that yes, you can achieve this goal. And if you need to start with a smaller goal and build up to it, that's what you do. But again, you want to make sure that that goal is achievable. And you want it to be realistic. When we talk about realistic, I believe there's always a sweet spot between dreams and reality. That's really where the achievability of that particular goal comes in. So again, you want to make sure that they're not just dreaming, and you don't want it to be, well, you don't want to just be all about the reality as well. You want to mix in a measurement of, I guess, vision and dreaming and excitement into the goal as well. So that's what I talk about when I say, about that sweet spot where just right in the middle between dreams and reality. And finally, the T for timely. Well, we always want to make sure that when we're setting goals, we're doing short and long-term goals with the clients. Short-term goals, we should each and every month, you should always be setting a goal in each one of the key areas at the beginning of the month when you're working with that client. That should always be the short-term goal. Okay? Long-term goals, as we've talked about before, quarterly reviews. You're going to make sure that every 3 months that you're going ahead and you are setting additional goals with the client, and again for yourself as well, and annual goals. So short term is going to be the monthly. Long term, or if you want to refer to it as midterm, would be the quarterly. Long term would be primarily the annual, the yearly goals. But again, you have to make sure that you always set a time when you're setting goals with clients. So again, when we put all these things together, that's what makes up SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely goals. So use that format when you're working with clients. We're going to get more into it as we over the coming weeks. We're going to get a lot more into goal setting, but I just want to do a quick introduction today because the primary thing that I want to focus on today is going to be all about neurosociative conditioning, but more specifically, what I want to do is a review about Tony Robbins' Personal Power 2 program that he has out, which he talks a lot, which is all actually based on neurosociative conditioning. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to turn off my camera for a moment, and because truthfully, it's distracted me a little bit, and we're gonna get into it. Now, I don't know if anybody here has used Personal Power 2. It's been around for a very long time, but it's a 30-day program, and it's all about a 30-day program for unlimited success. But it's all based around neurosociative conditioning. Now, Oh, sorry. It first came out on January 1st, 1997. And I remember it extremely well. I don't know what it was like in other parts of the world, but I can tell you, I'm from the States, and he just bombarded the airwaves with infomercials about personal power too when it came out. I'm talking, just every single night on multiple stations, the infomercials were running over and over and over again. And this is the first program I had read, many books I had read before then, but this is the first formal program that I ever invested in. And I was still living in the States. It was a couple years before we moved to Ireland. And I remember at the time it was a big investment because I'll tell you how long ago it was when I bought this. It was still cassette tapes at the time. It was a 30-day program. I can't remember how many cassettes that it included. I don't know if it was 25 or whatever it was, but I remember it very well. I remember it coming in a big box, and I was so excited. And it was really great, though, actually. And the reason I'm talking about all this because I just listened to it again after all these years. Because at the time, just so you know, I listened to it night and day. I was listening to it when I drove my car back and forth to work. I was working for a telecom company at the time. All the time on the road, when I'd be driving, I'd be listening to it. I'd listen to it at nighttime. I just really got into it in a big way. I loved it. But I just recently joined what's called Tony Robbins' Inner Circle. And all it is it's just a monthly subscription that I pay. It's like 95 euros a month, but it gives me access to all of his historical programs. And it's actually really good because I have a number of different programs that I need to go back and listen to again. But this one I just completed. It was I went back and I listened to it again, which is the reason why I wanted to do a review on it today because it's a really good reminder for me that how relevant that it really is, even though it's the guts of 25 years old now at this stage. It's still extremely relevant. Now, I'm not going to suggest that one way or the other that you go out and invest in this program. Truthfully, I don't even know what it costs specifically for this program anymore. I'm sure it is available, but for me, it's just part of a subscription that I paid for the access to all the different programs he has. But I will tell you that you can go ahead and if you're creative, you can find the success journal, which is basically outlines the whole thing online for free. Because I know because I went and before I put together this presentation, I did a search and I went on to Google and I did a search. I put in Personal Power 2 Workbook PDF is what I put into the Google search bar. And right away, I had no problem. I don't know how well you can see that there, but that's the website. But if you do the search, you'll find it. But it gave me the PDF version. I think it's about 120 pages, but it outlines every day what they talk about. And the good thing about it, and why I'm going to suggest that you do try to find it if you can, and you'll find it. Trust me, it's like I just did this the other day. So I had virtually no problem finding it. It took me all of about 2 minutes to find it. But again, just by typing in Personal Power 2 Workbook PDF, I was able to download it. But it gives a very good outline of what's involved in the program. But it also gives a number of different exercises, assignments, homework that you can do. So I would encourage you to go ahead and to you go ahead and actually find this and download it, and start to get involved with it. It's a really good program. But what we're going to do more specifically is, for the next few weeks, I'm gonna spend a bit of time in each one of these sessions on a Tuesday, going through it and giving you some feedback as far as what I got from it and how I see it fitting into the system that we're using right now, how we can incorporate some of what he teaches into our system when working with clients and when working with ourselves. So again, go and find a workbook if you can. If you have any problems, let me know. I just don't want to be, I don't know if there's any copyright laws or anything like that that would be in violation. So it's on his website, and that's where I got it from. Actually, it was on one of the Tony Robbins website that it was free. So I don't think it's any copyright violations, but I'm not going to be passing it around. You can go find it yourself, easy enough. But again, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to review the first week of Personal Power 2 with you. I'm going to go through day by day, basically what it entails and some of the things that he's actually teaching and sharing, because it is very relevant. Um, a lot of what I put into the system comes from Personal Power 2. It again, because remember, it's all based on neuro-associative conditioning, so it's very relevant and it's very effective. So you can also, if you don't want to invest in it, go onto YouTube. And again, I went onto YouTube and I didn't spend too much time on it, but after I located the Success Journal, I went onto YouTube and I typed in Personal Power 2 Day 1, found it right away, 45 minutes, 37 seconds. It's on there free of charge. Day 2 was on there. The first week, I only checked the first week, but I'm sure they're all on there because it's so widely available right now. Personal Power 2 was probably the most successful personal development program in the history of personal development. I mean, literally millions and millions of people got involved in this program. So it's it's readily available to download or to view on YouTube. So, and I don't think he actually restricts it. So we'll get into it now, but day 1, the very first thing he talks about is the key to personal power. And when he talks about personal power, in his own definition, personal power is the ability to take action. That's really all it is. Personal power is the ability to take action. So you'll notice one of my favorite expressions that you've heard me say many times, and I'll say it many, many more, is, primarily you have to take that daily, consistent action, because that's all personal development really is. That's all personal power really is your ability to take action on a consistent basis. So that's the core message on the very first day. He talks about, again, the ability to act. He also introduces what's referred to as the ultimate success formula. And you would have heard me talk about this before. The ultimate success formula is something I've used since I was introduced to it 25 years ago by Tony Robbins. Primarily, it's a simple format, but it's very effective. Number 1, know your outcome. You need to know what you want, what your objective is in every situation. He talks about it doesn't make a difference if you're having a meeting, or if you're setting goals, or if you're starting up a new business, or with your relationships. You always need to know what is the outcome, what is the objective. Then take massive action. He refers to it as your MAP, your massive action plan. But again, once you know your outcome, you just start taking massive action. The third step, notice what's working and what's not. Okay? We have to take a lot of action, then you got to just stop and you have to look. Notice what's working and what doesn't. Then you just need to change your approach. Obviously, if it's working, you're going to continue to do it. But if it's not working, or if it's not working to the best that of producing the results that you require, change the approach and keep doing that until you get it right. It's a very simple formula, guys, but it's the truth. If you take this approach to anything in life and you're persistent and you stick to it, you'll always succeed. The problem is, well, most people don't. Most people start out strong and they take a bunch of action, things don't go right. That doesn't work. And they quit. We can't do that. Not when we're working with clients, not when we're working on ourselves, not when we're designing our lives. We have to constantly know what our objective is. And again, we've already talked about this. Know what our objective is in each of the key areas. Like, what's your objective in your relationships, in your level of health, your growth, your finances? You need to know what that outcome is. Then you need to take primarily massive action. That's what those, when we have our subcategories and we're tracking, that's all that is. That's just an action plan. Those are the things that you're doing on a daily, consistent basis. And then you just need to notice, is it working or is it not? That's your job as a consultant. When you're reviewing the dashboard with clients, that's primarily what you're doing. You know what their objective is. The action, you know what actions they're taking because you can see if the points are there or if they're not there. And if the points are there, are they producing the results? Again, you have to give it time, but after a period of time, if they're always taking the action, but it's not producing the desired results, well, what are you going to do? You're going to change the approach. And you're going to continue to do that over and over and over again until you come up with the right formula. I'm a big believer in anything you want in life, whether it be in business or relationships or your health, there's always a way to get it. You just need to find the right formula. And unfortunately, you don't always find that immediately. Sometimes you have to keep trying different things. But if you're persistent and you stick to it, you will always achieve it, or you'll die trying, one or the other. But anyway, that's the ultimate success formula. So, and the third thing that he introduces in day one is the power of role models. Now, this is something that I haven't really talked probably enough about, but role models are fantastic. Role models you can use primarily to save time and energy. Tony says use role models to accelerate the pace of success. And he gives 3 steps. Number 1, find someone who's already getting the results that you want. So in other words, if you're trying to lose weight, for an example, find somebody who's already lost the weight and, more importantly, kept it off. Then find out what that person's doing. So is it diet? Is it exercise? Is it a combination? Then do the same things and you'll get the same results ultimately. Most time. And again, there are different variations and there are obviously other factors that are involved in that. but I think you understand the core message there. Use the power of role models to go ahead to save time. You don't have to keep trying to reinvent the wheel. Like I told you, when I put together this system, I didn't go out there and create everything from scratch. There's no way, shape, or form I was about to do anything like that. First off, I didn't have the knowledge or the ability, chances are, to actually do it. But what I did, and you could refer to it as role models, Tony Robbins was a role model to me. I took a lot of the best of what he had and restructured it into something that fit into my lifestyle. It's not identical, but there's definitely a lot of what he does fits in. And I took some from Napoleon Hill, I took some from Brian Tracy, I took some from Les Brown, all the best that resonated with me. But they were my role models. Okay, so you can do the same. And when you're working with clients, one thing you always want to be aware of, to a degree, to a degree, you're a role model. And I'm not saying that you're a role model that you've got to be have all the answers and you're the guru and if you've got to be the perfect weight and you've got to be earning so much money and amazing relationships. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. You're the role model for using the system. That's why it's so important that each and every one of the consultants are using the system. Because again, you've got to primarily, you have to be the role model. It doesn't mean that everything is perfect for you, but it just means that you're using it and you're improving, you're getting better each and every day. You know the system. So again, use role models, and the role models can be people you know, or it can be people like Tony Robbins, it can be people like different authors. It doesn't make a difference. There's a host of them out there. But use the power of role models to speed up the process in order to succeed, to produce the results, to get that formula to produce the results that you're looking for. So that was day one. So again, day one, what is personal power? Your ability to act. Then primarily, I'll go through it again very quick. We talked about the ultimate success formula and the power of role models. So that's going to cover day one. And again, download the workbook and it'll go into a lot more detail. And if you want, go onto YouTube or invest in the program. It was definitely well worth the investment for me. And I can guarantee you, I don't remember how much it was 25 years ago, but I know it was a lot of money at the time. Yeah, I think my wife thought I was insane investing that kind of money. But day two was the controlling forces that direct your life. And I think you already know what these are. We've talked about it enough. Pain and pleasure. Pain and pleasure are the two controlling forces that truly direct your life. And one thing that I really got out of it, and it's important that you understand this, pain is a greater motivator in the short term. If you can link pain to behaviors you want to stop with such high emotion and intensity that you won't even consider those behaviors anymore, and link pleasure to the new behavior you desire, you can instantly change your behavior. Now, again, I've given you some examples when we went through session number 4 about how I use pain and pleasure, but you really need to be aware of it. You need to really, really kind of get your head around the whole triple P, pain, pleasure principle, because they truly are. They're driving the direction your life is going. What you're associating pain and what you're associating pleasure to. He goes on, it says, at any moment, whatever you focus your attention on is what's most real to you. That's where he's talking about when pain is a greater motivator in the short term. But whatever you're really focused on is what's most real to you at that time. Therefore, if you want to change your behavior, You must focus your attention on the following questions. Remember we talked before about the power of questions? Well, he's got two great questions here. How will not changing your behavior be more painful than changing it? So again, if we were talking about diet, for an example, like you'll remember during the lesson number 4, I'm not sure which group you guys were in. Yeah, I've given a bunch of different examples, but I one of them I give the example about how I like fast food, and more specifically Chinese food. And when I get a desire to eat Chinese food, for an example, how I try to focus on the pain that that's going to cause me. If I go ahead and eat that, I go through all my points, and I go through all how it's going to make me feel, and how it's going to affect my life long term, and how I'm not going to be living up to living to the standard that I've set for myself. But then I go ahead and I link pleasure to, what if I don't eat that food? What if I don't consume those calories? How am I going to feel tomorrow? Am I going to be happy? Am I going to be satisfied? Am I going to be content? All the process that I went through there. But you guys need to be aware of it and start doing it yourself. And then he talks about the second question: how will changing it bring you measurable and immediate pleasure? Measurable, that's funny that they talk about that, because that's part of what we do. Measurable is with our point system. That's the example I used in lesson number 4. But again, what's the immediate pleasure? Even if it's small, is that immediate pleasure, the satisfaction of feeling strong and in control? Is it, the simple thing like the point system, like that little quarter point? Are you going to be able to actually use that to your advantage to get leverage on yourself? It's something I do all the time. But again, we can condition our minds, bodies, and emotion to link pain and pleasure to whatever we choose. He goes on, he says, use pain and pleasure instead of letting pain and pleasure use you. So that's going to cover day 2. Day 3, and again, guys, this is just an introduction, so if you want to get into it at a deeper level. Day 3, taking control. The first step, changing your neuroassociations. Now we're getting into neuroassociative conditioning. So what are neuroassociations? Neuroassociations, well, here it says they're self-explanatory in a way, and I suppose they are. I don't really know if I agree with that 100%, but I do agree with the next bit. They're deep-rooted associations that our brain forms between two things. So our brains learn to take certain things, objects, thoughts, emotions, signs, and anything else, and associate with other thoughts, emotions, feelings, and things. So what are they saying in that sentence there? Primarily, we link things up. Just different experiences, thoughts, different emotions to others. But more specifically, pain and pleasure. We tend to link up all the experiences we have. And if you really get down to it in its root form, it's either a painful experience or a pleasurable experience. And then he goes on to say, effectively, the brain learns through our past experiences to draw links between those two things. And again, the simplest thing to remember is that pain and pleasure. Everything that you experience in some way, shape, or form, you're linking either pain or pleasure to it. So when you come back to it again, and you might not even realize it, you automatically, that's going to determine your motivation to take action. And that's what's, again, that the linking of pain and pleasure. But that's all neuroassociations really are. What you associate to that particular experience or some form or variation of that experience. Your brain is very quick and it'll link things up extremely fast, especially when emotions are high. So you want to be very aware of what you're linking up, those neural associations that you're creating, because you're creating them all the time. And if you're not creating them, you're reinforcing what's already there. But the interesting thing is you can change those because they're not accurate. They're just basically what you linked up at that particular time. It doesn't mean it's accurate. It doesn't mean that it's true. It doesn't mean that it's 100%. It just means at that time, your mind linked up either pain or pleasure at its simplest form to that particular event, to that experience. So when you come back at a later stage and you're doing something similar to it, well, that's exactly what you're doing. That's where you're getting a reference of either pain or pleasure. But again, if we want to change our lives, well, then what you have to do is change your neuroassociations. Again, you need to use the pain pleasure principle to get leverage on yourself to go ahead and get that motivation. The motivation to do what? To take action. So if you find yourself in a position where you know you should do something, it's the right thing to do, it's required to produce the results you're looking for or a client that you're working with, if you're not taking action, if you're not feeling motivated, use pain and pleasure. Because chances are you've linked up some, and that doesn't mean it's accurate, but you've linked up pain to that experience previously, which is why you're finding it so difficult. Or if you want to stop doing something like consuming alcohol, smoking, whatever, anger, whatever the case may be, procrastination, well, it's primarily because, well, you've linked up pleasure to it previously. But you can reverse that. You can change your neuroassociations. That's the whole concept of neuroassociative conditioning. Conditioning just meaning that repetition over and over and over again. You're conditioning yourself. So, how to shape your destiny. This is the next thing that he talks about. Well, primarily, there's 4 parts of destiny. Every single action you take has an effect on your destiny. And he goes on to explain the 4 parts of creating your destiny. And it's very accurate. And I can tell you right now, this has a big part of our system. Everything we think or do is a cause set in motion. I think most people would agree with that, no matter how small. But everything you think or do is some cause set in motion. Every one of our thoughts and actions is going to have an effect or result in our life. It could be microscopic, so tiny you wouldn't even notice it. But I can guarantee you it has some type of effect or result in our life. But the interesting thing is those results begin to stack up. And over a period of time, they take our life in a particular direction. Every direction, well, there's ultimately a destination or a destiny. So, if you think about the power of the dashboard and our point system, all those little points that are acquired, even though they're so small, quarter point here, quarter point there, they mean nothing. But when they start to stack up, what do? They take us in a totally different direction. This is a big part of our dashboard. Like, it's easy to understand that. but how do you implement it into your life? This is where I came up with the idea of the dashboard. That because I really believe in the power of things stacking up, one stacking up on you, no matter how small or microscopic, over a period of time, they do take your life in a different direction. And that direction could be positive or it could be negative. Everything is a cause set in motion. Making a phone call is a cause set in motion. Not making a phone call is a cause set in motion. So again, and they all stack up, guys. Taking an action in your system, doing one of those subcategories is a cause set in motion. Deciding not to take that particular action is a cause set in motion. And over one day, it might not mean anything, very little, but stacking up day after day after day will ultimately decide where you're going to wind up. And equally important, where your client is going to wind up. Nothing in life has any meaning except the meaning you give it. And that's very true. Everything is about perception, guys. In my opinion, I think there's very little that's, unless there's certain things that are factual, of course, obviously, based on either math or science. But most things are just a matter of perception. What you think, what you feel, ultimately dictates your behavior. But it only has a meaning that you decide to give it. You decide, you're in control of what meaning you're going to assign to anything that happens in your life. That's why people react differently. Like some people, you can have the exact same thing happen, and there'll be completely total opposites as far as responses between two different people. And it all comes down to they both associated different meanings to that event. So that's a good one to remember. Nothing in life has any meaning except the meaning you give it. Sorry, I just can't really see it because something's in the way there, but mine, I won't bother with this one. It just primarily because it's being covered up by something. I don't know if you can see it on the screen or not. So I do apologize about that, but I'll allow you to read the first one yourself. A mind out of control will play interesting tricks on you, I believe. Directed, it's your greatest friend. For every disciplined effort, there's multiple rewards. Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn, again, in case you don't remember, I've said it many times, but Jim Rohn was primarily Tony's mentor that Tony went to go work for. He is one of the original personal development professionals in the industry. Jim Rohn, great, great, great guy. I love Jim Rohn. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. So we're going to pick up the pace here a small bit. But day 4, the science of success conditioning. There's that word conditioning. Neuro-associative conditioning. Conditioning is just primarily repetition over and over and over again. But to change your life, you must change your neuroassociations. Well, we've already established that. Our destiny is based upon neuroassociations of pain and pleasures linked in our nervous system to certain situations, people, ideas, emotions, or contexts. By changing those neuroassociations, we change the way we evaluate, the way we feel, therefore the way we behave. This is really important. Those neuroassociations, those things that you have linked up, pain and pleasure too, are dictating your behavior. 100%. So if you want to change your behavior or change your life, you need to learn how to change those neuroassociations. You'll remember the example, and when he talks about conditioning, Alcoholics Anonymous. I gave the example in number 4 when we talked about the introduction to neuroassociative conditioning. And in case you don't recall, that's primarily what they do in Alcoholics Anonymous. By using the power of conditioning, repetition, and emotion, they get individuals to primarily change their neural associations of what they link up to consuming alcohol. When people first start drinking or when they first start developing a problem, in the early days, well, they link up massive amounts of pleasure. But by using the format of Alcoholics Anonymous, they focus on all the negatives repeatedly, how horrible things were. But then they go ahead and they do the shift. Since they've stopped drinking, well, what happens now? Well, now, primarily, things have gotten much better. My life has improved. This has happened. That has happened. But in other words, they're linking up pleasure to not drinking. So they're linking up pain to consuming alcohol, pleasure to not consuming alcohol. But ultimately, what are they doing? Through the power of conditioning and repetition, and they speed up the process by adding a lot of emotion, they're changing neural associations. 3 things must be in place for these changes to be effective. The 3 fundamentals of neuroassociative conditioning. Number 1, get leverage on yourself. To do this, and this is going to be very important when you're working with clients, to do this, 3 levels of responsibility are necessary. You must decide on the following. First, you have to get leverage on yourself. You have to get to the point where things must change. You have to get to the point where you realize you or the client must realize they must change it. But they also must have the belief, or you must have the belief, that you can change it. And again, there's multitude of techniques you can use to get to the point where it must change. Think about all the negative things. Sit down and make a list if you need to. What are all the things that this has cost me in my life? And if you want to get more leverage where you must change it, sit down and not only write a list of all the things that it's cost you, but go into the future. Like, what's it going to cost me? What's it going to cost me in a year, 5 years, 20 years if I don't change it? And create so much pain that you have no choice to feel that it must change and that you must change it. And because it's so painful, you believe you can't change it. But link massive amounts of pleasure to that change as well. But those are the 3 things that must change, I must change it, and I can change it. And then they talk about interrupt the current pattern of association. You must learn to scramble the old patterns of thinking and feeling. He gives different examples, but you'll remember the one that I suggested, the 5-second rule. And again, it's only a suggestion. It's only one of the techniques you can use, guys, but it's a very good one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It interrupts the pattern. But then you need to condition that new empowering association. Install a new choice and reinforce it until it's conditioned. So if you recall, again, these are only suggestions that I gave back when I gave the introduction. What's your definite major purpose? What's your objective? Again, we all have our definite major purpose statement that we're saying every day, hopefully first thing in the morning, hopefully last thing at night. But that's conditioning it. But that's a great way after you use the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, do a follow-up with the question. What's my objective today? What's my purpose? Thomas Edison, I like this one. The successful person makes a habit of doing what the failing person doesn't like to do. Truthfully, I think we're all very much the same. We all like and dislike mostly. the same things, but the difference being between successful people and the people who are not quite as successful is that the successful person will make a habit of doing it. They'll take the self-discipline to do what needs to be done, whether they feel like it or not. So that's the first 4 days. Days 5 through 7, because he goes a little bit easy on the weekends. Basically, he gets into what everybody wants and how you can get it. And this is very, very relevant. I like the way he summarizes it. There's primarily only 2 things that somebody wants to change. They want to change the way they feel about something or behavior. It's as simple or as difficult as that. But when you put it in its root form and you get it all the way stripped down, there really are only 2 things that any person wants to change. They want to change about how they feel about something, or they want to change some behavior that they're doing. But as he says there in the end, everything human beings do is merely an attempt to change the way they feel, to change their state. It all comes down to feelings. That's all everything we do is just primarily we're trying to change our state. We're trying to feel good, ultimately. Trying to change that emotional state that we're in. But again, if you look at anybody you're working with, or when you're trying to make change within yourself, it really is as simple as that. You want to change either the way you feel about something, and he's got the examples as far as being frustrated and moving to become confident, or from feeling sad to being happy, or depressed to emotionally strong. So you want to change the way you feel or behavior. You want to either stop smoking or drinking, start taking massive action. You want to exercise and enjoy it, follow through on their commitments. But again, behaviors. But it's either all about the way you feel or changing a behavior. But ultimately, every single thing we do is merely an attempt to change the way we feel, to put ourselves into a more pleasurable state. So, how are we going to put ourselves in that peak state? Well, we won't get too much into it because he's going to get a lot more into this as we progress. But there's 3 things that need to be done. If you want to change your state, your emotional state, how you feel at that particular moment, the first thing you need to do is change your physiology, the way you're standing, the way you're breathing, the way you're moving, your physiology. You've all experienced when you're feeling confident, I guarantee you, your physiology is very different to when you're feeling uncertain. What we're focusing on is the second one. Primarily we use our physiology and what we're focusing on, and then the language, the way we're communicating with ourselves, and primarily the way we're evaluating what it means to us. But if you ever want to change your emotional state, change one of those things, change all 3 of them, and you'll definitely very rapidly change your state. But if you can change your physiology, what you're focusing on, and what it means to you, you'll change your state. And again, we won't get too much into it right now because that's a lot to that, but that's the core message behind what he's saying there. State management. That's something I try to focus on every day. You can change how you feel instantly by changing the way you move when you're getting into physiology, breathe, or using facial expressions, or make any new demand on your body. The state you're in determines your behavior and also your performance. If you want to change your performance in anything, whether it be business, sports, relationships, etc., the first thing to do is change your state. In any situation, If you put yourself in a peak state, you'll be able to utilize more of your true capabilities. Remember, and this is an important thing, remember, you're always responsible for your own state. And he talks about how over the next few days, what you're going to learn. But primarily, that's a very key point to remember there. You are always responsible for your own emotional states. It's always up to you. You have total control. And you're going to learn a lot more as we progress the next couple of weeks about this. So then he gives some very good examples there how to use your physiology to manage your state, how you can move your body differently, how you can change your breathing, radical changes in your facial expressions. They're all ways of changing your emotional states. Like, for an example, have you ever been nervous to do something, scared to do something, and you're just, you find yourself, you're kind of, all feeling nervous and you're shaking and you have to do it though. So instantly, what do? You take a deep breath and then exhale, and then you just go and do it. It changes your state, your breathing. But again, everything from your facial expression to the way you're standing, to the way you're moving, to the way you're breathing, to the way you're, using hand gestures, every single thing determines your emotional state. So my advice to you is start paying attention. When you're feeling confident, when you're feeling strong, how are you standing? How are you breathing? Where are your shoulders at? What does your facial expression look like? What's your tonality when you're talking to people? How are you communicating? Are you talking low and shallow? Or are you talking from a state of certainty and very clearly with the words that you're choosing? It all comes down to your physiology, which is determined in your state. And again, we're going to get more into that, but our goal is not to ignore the problems of life, but to put ourselves in a better mental and emotional states to not only come up with solutions, but really meet the challenges and take action. Because action is what is always going to be required. Daily, consistent action. So, some common misconceptions. Knowledge equals success. Not. Knowledge plus action equals success. That's very relevant. If you take nothing from this, realize that knowledge plus action equals success. I don't want to just be having these sessions with you guys where we're just sitting here and we're just watching presentations and we're just talking. Don't just take the knowledge. Take the knowledge and use it. That's what's going to really create change. That's what's going to create change for you and what's going to create change for the clients that you'll be working with. So your mission, should you choose to accept it for this week, what I want you to do, unleash your personal power. Remember, what's personal power? Your ability to act. Start unleashing it now. And the way you're going to do it, use neuro-associative conditioning. Start out incorporating some of what you've already learned. If you need to go back and watch session number 4, I strongly suggest you do that for that introduction. Go in and watch some stuff on YouTube about neuro-associative conditioning. But you really need to start getting comfortable with these techniques and incorporating them into your day-to-day life. Use them. Use neuro-associative conditioning to manage your emotions, to change your state. Go from being in a state of uncertainty to a state of absolute, total uncertainty. So be confident, feel strong, disciplined. Instantly put yourself into that emotional state. 3 steps, remember, to getting in your peak state. Pay attention to your physiology, what you're focusing on, and the language that you're using to communicate with yourself, to determine what that means to you. Learn to use pain and pleasure instead of pain and pleasure using you. But pay attention to all these things this week. Start using the knowledge that you're getting here. You're getting, in addition to just, learning the skills to make a living, you're learning the skills to go ahead and create change in your own life as well as others. Really take advantage of that, guys. You're learning some really powerful things here. So start implementing them. And I'm not saying you're not. Don't take it that way, please. But again, don't just come to the sessions. Use what you're learning here. Start to use the ultimate success formula. Know your outcome. Take that massive action. Notice what's working and what's not, and continue to make changes until it does. So, other than that, we're going to wrap it up. I apologize. We're about 3 minutes over, guys. I do apologize for that. Thank you very much for coming. I hope you got something out of it. Go in and download that success journal for Personal Power 2 if you can. A lot of good information in there. Go on YouTube, check out the days 1 through 5 if you can find them if you want, or invest in the program if you're up to it. Whatever you want to do. But look, we'll wrap it up with that. And I'll be around if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns. Feel free to reach out. I'll be around for about a half hour. All right. All the best, guys. Thanks very much. And we shall see you all soon.